Hello, Dr. Lockey, and welcome to our client training program presentation. Group members include Barry Green, Ernesto Mandujano, Jimmy Nguyen, and myself, Andy Morales. Now getting into our client history and background, our client is a female. She is 22 years old. She has about 10 years of gymnastics experience, 5 years of high school and club volleyball, 7 years of pole vault, and 3 years of collegiate level training. You can see some examples of the activities listed there. Moving into our client health, health is listed there. Previous and recurring musculoskeletal issues, patellar tendonitis, something to watch out for, inflammation of the patellar tendon during the exercise routine. And we use the 2018 PAR-Q questionnaire to assess our client's health. Purpose is to gauge individual's readiness to participate in physical activity in transitioning from light to moderate to vigorous activity, and by Brett et al. 2013. And in that same study, we can fully confide in this questionnaire to assess our client's health because these questions are framed for more than a base of 540,000 articles. And these articles have led to more than 60 evidence-based exercise risk-specific recommendations. And so all in all, our client has no signs or symptoms of cardiovascular, metabolic, and or renal disease. Going into health and fitness pre-testing testing procedures, we went with pre-testing circumference of thighs and arms, and this is a girth measurement. These are tools of measurement to assess percent body fat, but we used it more so for tracking muscle mass over time, muscle mass distribution, and for physique purposes. The InBody 570, in a study done by Miller et al. 2016, it's a bioelectrical impedance analysis that calculates fat-free mass and body composition from electrodes. And in that same study, they shown that there's a strong correlation between body fat percent values when assessing individuals in the ages of 18 to 25. Considering our client is 22, we thought it would be a relatively nice and an inexpensive way to divulge information from things like body fat mass and segmental lean body mass compositions. And then we went and chose the attitudinal assessment questionnaire. This questionnaires purpose is to gauge our client's attitude, outlook, and perspective on physical activity. And the three things our client expressed is change her perception of exercise. Second, review and set down goals more often. And finally, third, become more committed and accountable to improving her physical and mental health. Going into testing, we went with the functional movement screen. Its purpose is to assess fundamental movement patterns of an individual and then analyze muscular weaknesses and balances from these movements in a study done by Cook et al. 2006. And the purpose of the deep squat specifically is to assess symmetrical mobility of the hips, knees, and ankles. And the dowel assesses symmetrical mobility of the shoulders and thoracic spine. And then going forward with the ankle mobility, we chose a weight bearing lunge test. And this is a test that gives us information about range of motion measurements from the dorsiflexion of the ankle. And in a study done by Benel et al. 1998, requires individuals to lunge, place their foot forward, perpendicular to the wall, and try to touch their knee to the wall. And in the same study, doctors gained measurements from a distance from the big toe to the wall or the angle of the tibial shaft. This gives us a range available that the individual is able to do for functional tasks such as walking, running, stair climbing, and squatting. And then in that same study, they found that intra-rater reliability was high. And so anyone who has done enough research, watched enough YouTube videos, and knows what is expected of them and of the participant can easily gain reliable and accurate measurements of dorsiflexion of the ankle. And going on with the weight bearing lunge test, the left leg that is forward has more range of motion than the right leg when it is forward. And then this translates into the deep squat where that was at an angle. She's favoring her left leg, presumably, and then her right knee is not over the right toe. It is, but you could argue that it isn't. And then the dowel is forward away from the feet, lordosis of the thoracic spine, femur is below horizontal, which is good. And so these are just things to keep in mind when planning an exercise routine. And then our client's goals for this program: gain at least 2 to 3 pounds of lean tissue. We thought this was feasible after 6 weeks. Improve an in-body score from 80 to 85. All the score really means is the higher the score, the higher the muscle mass an individual has. Therefore, it implies a higher level of fitness, and the same can be said vice versa with the lower score. Non-specific goal is to feel as their physique has improved after the 6 weeks, improve our self-confidence, and then also lastly, change perception of our exercise. As a former multi-sport athlete, she has feelings of burnt out and exercising for her sport and health alone, and so she wants to enjoy planned physical activity. And now I will pass the baton over to my group members.
Hey there, Professor. So I'm going to be going over the warm-up program and then the cool-down program as well for our client. First, starting off, we were going through the walking knee hug. So 2 reps of 10 yards. Should be focusing on a slow tempo, walking, making sure to pull the knee tightly and snugly to the chest, getting a good stretch out of the glute and a good stretch out of the hamstrings there. Next, we're going to move into the lightweight good mornings. These should be performed, with a dumbbell or some kind of weight ranging from 10 to 15 pounds, so very lightweight, making sure that's not going to be taxing our client before we get into the session at all. So 3 sets of 10 reps there. Again, really focusing on a slow eccentric phase and a quick concentric phase, making sure that we're not really taxing that system yet. Air squats are going to be after that. 3 sets of 10 reps. Similar to the good mornings, focusing on a slow eccentric phase and a quick concentric phase. Inchworms after that, 2 reps, 10 yards. Focusing on trying to fit as many of those small steps in as possible during that pike phase and making sure that we're getting a good stretch in our hamstrings from there. And then lastly, we're going to be doing that walking Spider-Man lunge with a twist, almost kind of yoga-esque in this one, 2 reps of 10 yards. Should be focusing on a slow, deliberate movement and holding each kind of position for 5 seconds. Again, not trying to rush through this, making sure that we're keeping our system, under wraps and just making sure that we get blood moving on this one. So next, kind of the explanation between it all and kind of what happened, what we saw. We generally kept the warm-up the same. We didn't really feel it needed to be changed from week to week. We didn't see any issues coming from soreness or feelings of being prepared for the session. And then we were obviously in constant communication with our client and making sure that she felt prepared and that she felt like, this was really contributing to her program. It started off a little bit rocky. Obviously, nobody wants to be doing kind of a warm-up. Everybody, knows they need to do it, but nobody really wants to take the time to do it. So it was a bit rocky at the start, didn't really see the point of it, but as the sessions progressed and as the weeks progressed, she really kind of came around to it and really saw the importance of making sure that the warm-up was done effectively and was really done with purpose and not just kind of going through the motions on that one. Next, we're going to go into the cool down. So again, similar to the warm-up, kept it generally the same, starting off with a light jog, 3 to 5 minutes, mostly done on a treadmill or just around the block. Next, we did a seated forward fold. So we went into some PNF stretching, so proprioneuromuscular facilitative stretching. We saw some really good evidence from this. I work in it personally, and I, love the stuff, and I think it's really helpful. So we instituted that into our program. So starting with that seated forward fold, 3 rounds of PNF, performed by sitting with legs straight out in front. You tuck the chin down to your chest and then roll the body forward, making sure that you're not lunging for your toes and you're just going as far as your body naturally will. Client takes in a deep breath and then you slowly roll a little bit forward more. Next was the supine knee to chest. So again, same thing, did PNF on this one as well. Laying on your back, knee comes up to the chest, you tuck it in towards your chest and then you push back against your hands, contracting those, the glute muscle and trying to extend that leg out, allowing yourself to deepen the stretch after you release. Next, we went into kind of a yoga-esque. Our client had some background in yoga and really enjoyed it. So we thought might as well put a little bit of that in there and make sure we're doing something she likes to do and make it a little bit more fun for her. Starting off, we did the downward dog into a child's pose. So just 3 rounds of that cycle, making sure that it was really slow and deliberate, making sure we're not, pushing her to go any faster and making sure we're really taking our time on this one. And then finishing off, we did a lumbar twist stretch. Again, PNF stretch on this one, starting on your side, facing laterally. And then you take one, leave your bottom leg straight out, top leg bends up towards the chest, kind of like the knee to chest stretch. And then you take both arms, claps them out in front of you, and then you're just opening to where your chest then faces the ceiling. And you're now in a kind of supine position with your lower half still facing laterally. PNF cycles on this one is you then close your arm back to the starting position and then release, letting yourself deepen more into that stretch. Awesome. So same thing with the kind of warm-up program. We didn't change it much. We thought it was really, we thought it was well done. And then we also thought that she really enjoyed it. So we didn't want to mess around with it too much. Same thing. We were in constant contact with, our client, making sure that she felt like it was worth it, making sure that she felt like it was, worthy of the time that we're putting into it and making sure that she really enjoyed it and it's not just a hassle for her and that it's something that she can kind of, enjoy as a cool down process before she, takes off and does whatever she was going to do for the rest of that day. We did see a marked improvement kind of in flexibility just from session to session. we saw that she was getting deeper into her squats, deeper into those stretches, and deeper into the technique of the workouts that we instituted for her.
So here we have week 1 of the 6-week training program. As a way to save time and space for the actual presentation, we decided to only include this first week. However, all 6 weeks are going to be uploaded to the summary document. And so you can refer back to that if needed. So just to summarize the 6-week program, we had Mariah perform a push-pull legs split. So on Monday, she trained legs. On Wednesdays, she trained push. And on Fridays, she performed a pull session. And she performed about 10 sets per muscle group weekly. And the volume ranged from 10 to 15 reps within those selected exercises. And as for intensity, we based the scale of intensity off reps in reserve. And you'll see that in this first week, it's based off 3 reps in reserve. However, in the following weeks, the reps in reserve would decrease by, or I should say they did decrease by 1. So in week 2, it was 2 reps in reserve. In week 3, it was 1. And in the 4th, 0. However, in the 5th week, we planned a designated deload week where the reps in reserve went up and the volume for those sessions decreased. And in the final week, load increased and volume decreased. You'll also notice that the rest intervals for this week were 60 to 90 seconds, and those remained pretty consistent throughout the 6 weeks up until about the 4th week where we trained 2 failures. So the rest intervals increased to about 120 seconds. I should also point out that at the end of each session, Mariah performed hanging leg raises, which was an exercise that I had her program. This was just a way of me trying to get her to buy into the actual program itself. All I asked from her was that the exercise was within reason, and I programmed the variables for it, which include sets and reps. Like I mentioned previously, we designated the 5th week of the program as a deload week. And this was just to allow Mariah to recover both physically and mentally, since she was training to or near failure within those first 4 weeks. So you'll notice that the volume and intensity were both decreased. Since Mariah was using a push-pull legs split and only training 3 times a week, this would mean that she was training with a frequency of 1 session per week per muscle group. We did this because it would allow us to utilize a variety of exercises within that session as compared to a split such as a full body split or a upper lower split. However, someone might argue, well, isn't frequency important to hypertrophy? And that's not necessarily the case, which was suggested in a study done by Dr. Steve Burns and Michael Thomas, where they compared the differences in strength and lean mass when utilizing a training frequency of 1 session per week as compared to 3 sessions per week. And what they found was that there were no significant differences between the 2 groups. As long as weekly volume is matched, then hypertrophy is consistent. For each muscle group, we decided to program 10 weekly sets, which we based off of a study done by Brad Schoenfeld and company, where they performed a systematic review and meta-analysis on current literature to determine the effects of total weekly volume on hypertrophy. And what they found was that there is a dose-response relationship between sets per week and muscle mass. What this means is that as sets increased, so did hypertrophy. And overall, their studies or their findings suggested that to maximize muscle hypertrophy, an individual should perform at least 10 weekly sets. So this is so we use that as a baseline for Mariah. Of course, a more advanced or a more novice lifter might have to fluctuate those weekly sets. We decided to use repetitions in reserve as our scale of intensity, just based off of the type of exercises that we programmed for Mariah. Since there was pin-loaded or selectorized machines, those types of equipment aren't really applicable in terms of using scales of intensity such as percentage of 1RM. So, we also knew that the use of RIR is just as accurate or effective in comparison to other forms of scales of intensity, which was suggested in a study done by Eric Helms and company in 2016. They found that the use of RIR provides an accurate measure of intensity when sets are taken to or near failure. And this is even more so in experienced lifters. And like we mentioned before, Mariah has over 3 years of strength training under her belt. So we figured this would be a good scale of intensity to use for her.
So the post-test results, the client weighed in at the beginning of the 6 weeks at 135.8 pounds and a post-test of 141.3 pounds. This is an overall increase weight of 5.5 pounds. We think some of this was due to muscle. She had a pre-test of 57.5 muscle mass and the post-test was 60.8 pounds. This was an increase of 3.3 pounds. She also lost some body fat as well. Pre-test showed that she had 23.1% body fat, and then a post-test was 21.9. This is a decrease in body fat by 1.2%. As you can see here, for the post-testing continued, we measured her circumference of her left, right arm, and leg. The right arm was started off at 10 inches. The left arm is 10 inches as well. The legs was about 21 inches. For the post-test, she lost about 1 inch in the arms and then 1 inch in the legs as well. Lastly, another thing we want to point out is the in-body score. She started off with 80 out of 100. The goal was to reach 85 out of 100. However, for the post-test, we ended up getting 83 out of 100, which is still great. So as you see in this first picture right here, this is a post-test for the weight-bearing lunge test. This test simply just tests the mobility of the ankles. As you can probably see in a video, in a slide prior for mine, one of my partners probably showed a before picture. Shows right here she's gained a lot of mobilities within her ankles. As you can see, her knee is now touching the wall. The knee is over her toes and her heels are flat. This is great mobility increase from the before picture. Over here as well, this is the FMS squat test. You can tell by this picture, she clearly has a lot more depth in her squat and she has a lot more mobility throughout her thoracic area. Lastly, we did an attitudinal assessment. This simply just shows her attitude towards working out. As you can see here, her first scores are about 2s, 3s on average, simply just saying that she's okay with working out, but it's not like, you know, the greatest. But at the end of the 6 weeks, you can see right here that she has more of 4s and 3s as her results, simply just showing that she is now more motivated to work out and enjoys it a lot more. So did we achieve our goal? At the beginning of the program, our goal was to simply have the client put on 2 to 3 pounds of muscle in 6 weeks. We did that and actually exceeded that goal. Our client put on 3.3 pounds of muscle to be exact. And so for body fat, that was not one of our goals to lose body fat. However, any body fat being lost was going to be a bonus. As you can see, she lost 1.2% body fat, so that was a plus. In terms of mini goals, all of them were met, an exception of the in-body score. The in-body score, like I said, was 83 out of 100, and we were trying to shoot for 85. So for the interactions and challenges, the first one was simply just the adjustment period. When first starting out the program, she was not comfortable in a commercial setting or with the equipments within a commercial setting. However, over time she got used to that. Secondly, the minimal energy within the training session. This is just simply due to her work and lifestyle. She would work in the daytime and evening, and then at nighttime she would have her training sessions then. And this is a lot of, she's probably really tired by the end of the day just because of her work throughout the week. We're also informed that she had a lack of intent during her training session, simply just saying that we were told that she was doing the motions just to go through the motions and not specifically trying to work on contractions within the muscle. Lastly, fatigue and soreness throughout the program. This is simply just, we were informed that she was not used to training until failure. So with this new training for the 6-week program, we were told that she experienced a lot of soreness and tiredness. So overall, our program was a success as a team. We managed to guide and help the client into gaining her certain goals when it comes from pre-test to post-test, even during testing, all of which the results were in our favor. Most importantly, our client told us that she was very satisfied with her results, and that is the best that we could do for her. And we're very proud that it could happen. Thank you so much for watching, Dr. Lockie. Hope you have a great rest of your day.